as she does the sabotage, she gives herself the reason to continue more sabotage. It's almost kind of like one leads to the other. And even a little one, even like a little thing could reverse the machine because
Absolutely. In fact, what we found is that what you're doing is what scientists call pattern interrupt.
Mhm.
So if you interrupt that self-sabotage with something friendly, it has to be a big deal, but actually these little moves are much more effective. They're easier to integrate and they make a little, there's a little opening and it might close again, but it never goes away because you've had the experience.
Well, hello, Katie.
Hello, Sophie. Always makes my heart expand when I look at you.
Oh, me too. Actually, the other day I had a moment where I wasn't looking at you. I was just walking. I mean, I know there was a celebration for you this just recently, and so maybe your birthday was around vibrationally, but I was just literally walking down the street and I just thought of you and I had like this like chest open, laughing, and I was with people who were like, what's going on? And I love my friend Katie so much.
Oh,
You don't even have to be in the room to even elevate. How now? So, hey, listen, something happened this week that I thought was a really good prompter for us to look into. And that has to do with a friend of mine. She's a friend. She's the daughter of a friend, not fully my friend, but close enough. She really is trying to turn her life around. Like her life is I would describe it as lots of self-destructive choices.
Mm-hmm.
And so my friend who knows what I do introduced us, we talk. She's very gung-ho. She wants to do this thing. She's going to email me every day, tell me the good things she's going to do, and then doesn't. And not only doesn't, but then judges herself that she doesn't. There's a lot of shame involved now and all the things. And so I was curious because when someone is attempting, like almost kind of you have to have a minimum of self-love to even start shifting that train. And even if you want to, sometimes it's so incredibly difficult. And I wanted to ask you, until you jump and you become someone who really takes care of yourself and realizes the effect that we have with our choices on ourselves, what does one do? What can we do to like kind of help people, start this journey, I guess?
Yeah, well, that's there are so many different dimensions to that question. The first one that occurs to me is where people are getting their fuel, like their actual fuel for living. And I think that there's one cycle that's really based on, oh, I messed up, but I'm going to do better next time. And I think it's oriented towards some goal that came in externally earlier in life. Like, if I do this, then I'll get some love and attention. So it's always about there's a hole in the receiver, the reservoir for receiving love and attention. And either it didn't get filled up or it leaks out, because we can't hold it. But then the attention is always oriented toward out there. And if I can get somebody to approve of me or to help me, then it will sort of fill me up for a little while, but it always leaks, and it always drains and it isn't sufficient. And so I think recognizing just where are you getting your juice from? And for most people, it's adrenaline, which is either beating up on yourself and then trying to do better, but it's all based on the endorphins that keep us suppressed rather than those that allow us to expand. And then there's this choice, what I call committing and recommitting. But I think that people need to recommit. Like for changes that I've made, I've had to recommit, like hundreds of times. I remember specifically when I was making the commitment to reveal rather than conceal, which is one of the commitments in conscious loving. Mm-hmm. And I got lots of juice from concealing because I was raised in a family and I was raised in a part of the country where you just didn't say things. You didn't confront people. So you kind of kept it all to yourself. But the attention that one got was always for, oh, you look really good today, or you got your chores done, or, it wasn't for, oh, I feel good in your presence, or I'm happy that you're here. And so that's what makes it really complicated, is because people keep outsourcing their well-being to others.
Wow. Oh my God. There also is a lot in what you just said. The one that really got me curious is when you said that you got fuel from like you tracked that you were actually getting fuel. Tell me how, because I perceive concealing and not telling and like holding a beach ball underwater at all times. Like I find that not energy giving at all. So I'm curious, like is it control? Was it like you were just kind of holding?
Well, there was a certain kind of approval that would come if I behaved well. Like I didn't say my own opinion, and I looked demure, and I looked the way that I was supposed to be, like going to church. I would have, I'd wear a certain outfit and not, I couldn't move around a lot because it was a Presbyterian church, not a Black church where people are really moving with the message. And so as a mover, it was really difficult for me to kind of contain myself. But the issue was, I remember distinctly, well, gosh, I was about 4 or something. We lived in Kansas City at that time. We lived in Overland Park, Kansas. So yeah. So, and I remember saying to my mother, why is Mrs. Burns so mad all the time? And she said, oh, don't you ever say that. And she got really mad at me. And there was this sense of, you cannot say what you see. You must. And so it's that kind of concealing where people say, oh, so good to see you. But that they just hate you. And I could see that they just hate it. And so it was very confusing to me. But there was a lot of approval. It was like living in the movie Fargo.
Oh,
where people would say, like, nice weather we're having today. Well, there's a storm coming tomorrow. That kind of superficial is like eating junk food all the time. And you get a certain kind of nourishment, but it's not really sustaining.
That's really interesting. I remember one time my brother was visiting from France, and he had just arrived, and my daughter was maybe 9, maybe even younger. And she came back from school, and they got together and they said hi. And my daughter says, I really want to spend time with you, and I really would like to be with you, but I'm really tired. And I'm thinking I'm going to take a little nap, and maybe we play tomorrow. And so I love you, and I'm going to go take care of myself. And she walked away. And my brother turned to me and he said, I think he was 45 or something. And he said, I'm 45 years old. I still do not know how to do that. Just speaking what was true for her, not in nobody took it in againstness. There was nothing that was said that was offensive other than she wasn't being the polite, demure, little.
Exactly. And where do you see examples of that? I mean,
not much.
I think not much. I think a little bit more, but it's really been part of, in my opinion, it's all part of the effort to control women, especially.
Oh.
That, it's all about, I'm very passionate right now about what I consider the elephant in the room, which is contempt. And contempt is the conviction that someone is less than you. That they're just not, it's a power differential between power over rather than power with. What you were describing of the person who said, I'm ready to go now, was power with, acknowledging you have your choice and I have my choice and this is my choice. And it isn't any attempt to control others. But so much of what I think is going on right now in the general culture is about control. Who gets to be in control? And do you get to have your feelings and and speak what's true for you, or will you be punished for that in some way? And I think so many of us have been for sure punished for telling the truth. And there are just all kinds of episodes. I remember Gay talking about one time where he decorated the walls, because his mother, told him to make art. And so he did, but he did it on the walls, which was not, so the free expression of your own creativity I think that's what part of what society does is, help us to express ourselves, but not to get into
But
too
not too
much
much.
trouble. Right. Yeah. Not too much. And then who regulates that, is always a source of confusion for many people.
Especially
Like
children.
yeah,
Especially young
especially.
people that haven't had, it's like these things that are taller than them that seem to be in charge of something. Like they're driving the car, they're paying the rent, whatever. Like,
Right.
but somehow
And
they must know.
and they can actually pick you up and move you to a
Yeah.
certain
Without
so,
getting your attention, just like sweep you off the ground. So we started from this friend of mine that's interesting how you bridge that. Let's get back to that. Like, help me re-bridge. We started from my friend who's really struggling to make choices. So she would have been yanked out of her own needs and desire at the start. And so she really,
yeah. And I think one of the biggest gifts that we can give to another person who is struggling is to see their essence, to see who this is an evolving work of art. This is a unique person who has unique attributes, and they're developing and expressing. And I'm letting myself be present with that without any commentary or trying to make anything happen. And I've experienced that gives people space and breath in order to expand a little bit, because also I'm hearing what you're describing as a certain kind of an upper limit problem.
Mhm.
That we're so conditioned to be victims and to help other victims or not help them or judge other victims, that we don't really have a good model for wholeness. What does it look like if a person is whole and resourceful and making their own decisions?
Which is interesting because in the dynamic of our, let's say our parents, our mothers often, and with my generation and yours probably as well, do you think one has to already have done that exploring? Like if the mother was someone who was told, sit here, look cute in church, that whole thing was already planted onto them and they've built their lives that way. It perpetuates, right? Like
Oh,
it's
it's generational. Oh, it is. It's so generational. And I was just remembering a time when I was very young. I did a lot of my transformation at a very young age. I think I was 9. And I was in one part of the house and I could see my mother and my grandmother who were in the kitchen. And so I was like a room away, but, it was open and I could see them. And I could see that they were arguing with each other. And I couldn't exactly hear what they were saying, but I suddenly had this experience of, this is not their argument. This is an argument that goes back and back and back and back.
wow.
And they're just carrying it forward. And I decided at 9 that I was going to stop that
You're
in
going to
my
stop that
generation.
particular argument.
I was going to stop that whole sense of
Yeah.
arguing to connect.
Mhm.
And so it became part of, how else can we connect with others without trying to control them or make ourselves better? This whole idea of, how can I be with someone in a way that supports both of our growth and our enjoyment? And that was one of the choices that I made back then. That the whole idea too was really rooted in my grandmother never appreciated my mother because she didn't want her to get a big head.
Wasn't that what your mother did to you?
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Mm.
But when I understood that my grandmother was doing it out of a sense of, she wanted my mother to be accepted, but what actually happened was that my mother felt completely sabotaged by that, and she really never got over it.
Wow.
That because she always felt less than, and because she was never appreciated. So one of the other gifts that we can give to people that we care about is to richly appreciate them,
Mm.
and to appreciate them for their uniqueness and their skills, and maybe something that's evolving. Maybe that like with your acquaintance that you were talking about, that she had made this step
Mhm.
and then she had sabotaged it. But it's that's the way growth happens. It's not a straight shot. It's like, oh, I've solved that problem. Okay, on to the next, because
Mhm.
it's all woven into, hundreds of experiences that you've had and things you've seen and, and witnessed in social, like in social media, but also that you've kind of imbibed a lot in growing up. That somebody gets attention, somebody else doesn't get attention, and that's just the way things are. So but appreciation can interrupt that.
It's funny because this weekend I went to a pickleball tournament. I wasn't playing, thankfully, because it was 110 degrees and they were still playing. And I mean, they were falling like flies, really. Like they were,
Yeah.
you know. But this one woman, not a friend, but a woman similarly acquaintance, she won gold and it was her first like tournament of that kind. And so I was so happy and I was cheering and I was really like, whoa. It was really hard. I didn't like playing by myself. It was just like six things. Like she could not receive. I mean, all of us was trying to appreciate, and
Exactly.
she would not. It was almost like a glass door. Like it kept.
I think you're describing exactly what so many people experience is their inability to receive. Because part of the way we protect ourselves from what we anticipate is going to be an onslaught or an attack is that we close off. And so if you open yourself up and then, you get hit again, it doesn't take very many of those to say, I'm not doing that again.
So then when the good things come, you now shut the door. Like you
don't trust them, you don't let them in, and you don't receive them. So then you don't get that new reservoir filled up with appreciation and a sense of, I'm worthwhile. I can love myself. And for many people, they find that shameful to even say it. Not even, that's not something that belongs to me. It belongs to God or it belongs to somebody else. But if I claim that I'm a worthwhile person, aren't you full of yourself?
Yeah.
So it's all about the socially reinforced upper limit problem so that we're all basically wounded.
Right.
And if people are wounded, they're more easy to control, so you buy things, you follow the trends with that intention of, well, maybe I'll get some juice from that.
Because if you start doing the juicing yourself, like if your own container is full, then you're probably not at midnight buying stuff from a brand online that we know without, remembering that you bought the thing. And
exactly. And then you got four of them in your closet and you don't use any of them, but you get that moment of, I think, artificial connection. Like, I'm getting something for me, but it's not really for you.
Right. Wow. Well, funny enough, there was this other couple that was playing who also won, and they walked out of the court and everybody was congratulating them. And he literally said to her, so it was a partnership between a couple, and he said to her, on that point number six, whatever he was tracking, like point number 6, I cannot believe you were not at the net. Like some absolutely dissing.
Oh, wow.
And I sat there and I said it. I was like, you guys did win, right? Like you did win. Like right?
You remember that you won? Just a few
not that it's the point. The winning is not the point, but he couldn't.
Actually, the winning is the point. Why are they playing? And
that's the tournament, right? Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you could, because some people were losing the tournament, but they were having a blast. And I was like,
exactly,
which one is really winning? Like, it sounds like these guys are having so much more fun than these guys that are they would like, one didn't even say, like, normally you come to the net and you acknowledge the person at the end of the game, like this. And that one guy who was, lost wouldn't even do that. And, he would he walked away, like kind of in a huff. And
yeah,
I mean, if you have 2 cents of, psychology to you, you could see that he was mostly beating himself up. Like he wasn't even against the one who won, but
he just didn't even have enough. He didn't have enough sufficiency to extend beyond himself.
No,
because if we're starved for, a sense of our own worthiness, it's going to take a whole lot there from outside. But one of the things I've discovered is that if we're not willing to receive it, it will leak out, we'll sabotage it, we'll squash it. It's really the heart of the upper limit problem. And it's so fun that you're mentioning pickleball, because sports are one of the best places that you can see the upper limit right there, in action, which is our tendency to sabotage ourselves when we're expanding and something good happens or some kind of appreciation or acknowledgement and because of the fear of being, I think the fear of being too much and then being attacked for that.
Or maybe losing it. Like I had it here, but maybe I'm not going to be able to maintain it as well. And so almost kind of lowering the bar as well.
Yeah, don't expect too much of me. I know I won this time, but hey,
Yeah. Yeah, that's really funny. I never connected the dots so directly, but often I notice that when I do a good ball myself, when I play, the next one is not so good. And then somehow the one that is not good leads me to be kind of like, all right, come on, regroup. Let's get this one going. Almost like I call it the redemption. Like when you do a really bad shot and then the next one's really good and everybody's like, oh, okay.
Phew, she's back on track. Yeah, they have some sayings about that in golf, which is don't follow a bad shot with a stupid shot.
Yes, exactly. And isn't that because of that? Isn't it a
it is because of the self-sabotage but what people are doing is they get adrenalized. And so I think one of the big shifts that we can all make is from adrenaline to presence. And that you can do with slowing your breathing, opening your body, really focusing on shifting your attention, what we call loop of awareness, where you're actually giving and locating yourself in your body, doing fear melters. So it's basically coming back to yourself and giving yourself some loving attention, even if your thoughts are right. So if you do something, even though that your mind is going, and roaring and accusing you, but you shift your body, that will shift your brain.
That's really amazing. So to wrap it, I mean, to not necessarily wrap it, but to kind of bring it to this friend that's struggling with the goodness, as she does the sabotage, she gives herself the reason to continue more sabotage. It's almost kind of like one leads to the other. And my suggestion when we were talking was that even a little one, even like a little thing, could reverse the machine because
absolutely. In fact, what we found is that just what you're doing is what scientists call pattern interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So if you interrupt that self-sabotage with something friendly, it could be even looking around at something that you find beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So because you can't source it yourself right away. So if you look at something beautiful or something that's expanding, or you think of somebody that you love or appreciate, and then let yourself have that. Mm-hmm. We need to export it until we can generate it ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so making just even one little shift, like moving your body differently or letting yourself smile inside, mm-hmm. Or just giving yourself a little hug, or doing a little wiggle. You're interrupting that, mm-hmm. which can be vicious. I mean, mm-hmm. really, when people are in it, that's why sometimes people need medication as a pattern interrupt, because they just have gotten so drained they can't do it.
Wow. So I'm curious to behaviors where we are starting to do it, and maybe that is another version of the upper limit, actually, as I'm starting my sentence. But I'm realizing that sometimes for a while, it's almost like the length of time. I'll speak for myself, but the length of time I'm able to maintain this level of love and care and has extended dramatically. When before, yes. It would be like mostly self-sabotage or self-destructive behavior. But then I would do like a little mini thing and it would be like, oh my God. And then I would go back. And then yes. I feel like I've just, really what I've done is I feel like I've increased where now mostly, right? I love when you it's mostly the goodness. And then maybe I do a mini thing, like I do a mini thing that's like a little, and now, frankly, it has to be pretty mini to even, because I don't do very many of those behaviors. And so, well, I'll do like one mini one and I'm like, oh yeah, I used to do that a lot and now I don't. And I just kind of like so maybe it's a matter of just trusting that you can increase.
Well, I think that is our big task as humans. And in fact, that's our, what we say, my intention is to expand my ability to give and receive more love every day. That's my intention. And that expand my ability to give and receive, loving, love, attention, presence, really, they're all the same thing of being with myself, of letting other people be with me. And I remember at the very beginning of really getting onto the upper limit problem, I noticed that most people could sustain it for about 4 seconds. I'm not kidding. And then there'd be a critical thought or forgetting something or bumping into something or perceiving somebody was attacking you. So expanding can start from 4 seconds and keep expanding and expanding. And it really is the one problem. If you think about it, if you have your resources, then you're able to meet what's happening in the moment, what's going on between you and other people, and to be resourceful in that, to be able to participate. And then you get the juice of connection and the juice of collaborating and the juice of creating together, which is so much more, to me, it's so much more fulfilling than the adrenaline hit, because it's really a one note. It's like, ah, and then,
Yes.
and you reverb with that, but then it goes away. And then you
It's
have
like
to,
drug. It's literally
it's a drug. It's a drug. It's a
Like
non-renewable drug.
The way you looked when you did this, it's like someone who does like one shot of heroin and then pretty much their entire career as a heroin user is to get back to this, like
to get that first whoa. Yeah. But the whoa comes so much more reliably from letting yourself give and receive attention. And that, and also if that's blended with appreciation of someone genuinely gives sensitive awareness to you, that is incredibly healing, I have found. And even if you don't know them very well, or that's one of my jobs when I go around in the world, is I'm acknowledging people and just giving them my attention, and I can feel them receiving it. And there's this you're like a big fresh breath that happens, and it also enhances me because I can feel them expanding their own presence with themselves, and then I receive that, and it adds to my aliveness.
So maybe when one is starting in this path, it could be as simple as, I know this person in particular, she has dogs that she walks at least every day, which is a wonderful thing because that helps
in all kinds of ways.
And, exactly. But maybe just even walking outside and maybe smile to one person, or just find a way to like have a little moment. Because if you make it small enough, I mean, to me, that's like, I don't know what would have to happen that I cannot get out and smile at someone. It would have to be the house fell on me, and I'm physically buried under rocks. But I mean, it would really take a lot for me to not be able to, reach out for that many seconds. But for some people, it's a lot. Like it's a lot to be able to, just generate enough energy, to
absolutely, especially if you're, if you've been in this cycle for a long time and are literally depressed, your energy is depressed, to actually reach out is a very big deal. So what I like to have people do in the beginning is to let themselves reach out to themselves. So, I'm willing, in fact, I was sharing with some people earlier our whole concept of drops of love. I'm willing to give myself, not a whole bucket full, or maybe even not a handshake, but
don't exaggerate.
but a drop of love. So, like maybe a drop of love in my throat where I'm feeling a little tight, or maybe a drop of love in my shoulder. So, if I put it together with a place where I feel tight, and I give myself a drop of love there, just for a moment, then it begins to expand again, and it interrupts that cycle of just shrinking and disappearing. It gives me a sense of, oh, I'm lovable. And even if I think I'm faking it, like, oh, that's stupid and that's a silly thing to do, but when I can convince people to just do it, make that move,
and then you switch the energy.
Yes,
like the second
and then they can feel it.
Yeah, like the second even the way you said a drop of love, like my entire body was like, oh, I mean, a drop of love is what a beautiful visual, to just imagine like just a little drop. Like even if that's all I can do right now is a little drop, Yeah,
it makes a difference. So just that we think it has to be a big deal, but actually these little moves are much more effective. They're easier to integrate, and they make a little, there's a little opening, and it might close again, but it never goes away because you've had the experience. And that your body remembers. And so if you keep letting your body assist you, then eventually it'll change those mind scripts. Because we think we have to do it the other way around. We have to create a new script, and that's very hard to do. But it's really easy to create a new movement, a new breath, and a new way of being in your body that then flows up to your mind.
Oh, I love that. We are wrapping up. I feel like and you broke it down to, anyone can do a drop of love.
Yes. And it's so lovely. And you can send drops of love to others, because I found that they receive it, even if it's across time, or across space, so I'm sending, because we've had so many weather events recently, I'm sending drops of love to people I know who are in those situations. So it doesn't have to be just the people around us. We can do this locally. We can do it globally. With a drop of love.
And I do find that when I didn't call them drop of loves, but thinking of someone in a loving way, that's a drop of love.
Absolutely.
And I often find that they'll text me that night, or they'll say, like, I was having a hard day today or something, and I'll be like, oh, that's probably why I was inspired to send you a drop of love. Now I'm going to call it a drop of love.
Yes, I so appreciate that, because we can, the visual of it too, that it's gentle. And it's just a drop, and there's kind of a little tickle in there, and it's sweet.
Very charming. It's very, very charming.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I think we should call this episode Drops of Love.
I do too.
I really love it. Thank you. I love you. Drops and buckets. I love you, buckets of drops. Thank you.
Thank you.